4:18 a.m. in the East China Sea. A Japanese destroyer cuts steadily through moderate swells, its radar painting a familiar picture of empty water and distant traffic. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch team settles into the rhythm of another routine patrol until a new contact tightens its bearing. A Chinese naval ship has altered course. At first, the maneuver looks ordinary. Shadowing is nothing new here, but the distance keeps closing. Hundreds of meters become tens. The hull appears through the bridge windows larger than it should be, riding the same swell lines. Alarms do not sound, but every officer in the room understands the implication immediately. This is not an exchange of fire. No missiles, no warning shots. Yet one wrong adjustment of speed or rudder could turn steel into wreckage and a patrol into an international crisis. The destroyer now faces a decision measured in seconds: maintain course and risk collision, or maneuver and signal concession. Chinese naval ships are trained to shadow. Japanese destroyers are trained to hold their ground. So when shadowing becomes dangerously close, where does signaling end and escalation begin? Encounters like this do not happen in a vacuum. The East China Sea is one of the most tightly compressed maritime spaces in the world, strategically vital, politically sensitive, and constantly monitored. For Japan, these waters are inseparable from national security. Key shipping lanes pass through them, supplying energy and trade to the home islands. Japanese destroyers operate here not as a show of force, but as a constant assertion of presence and awareness. Their patrols are predictable by design, meant to stabilize, not provoke. China views the same space through a different lens. From Beijing's perspective, persistent Japanese naval activity near disputed areas represents an encroachment that must be challenged, but carefully. Open confrontation would trigger diplomatic backlash and potential escalation. Instead, the preferred approach has increasingly been gray zone pressure actions that are assertive enough to signal resolve, yet calibrated to stay below the threshold of armed conflict. Shadowing is a perfect tool for that strategy. By matching speed, mirroring course changes, and gradually reducing distance, one ship can impose psychological and operational pressure on another without firing a shot. Every meter closed forces the opposing commander to make calculations about safety, intent, and political consequence. The sea becomes a negotiating table, one where rules exist but interpretations vary. Over the years, Japan has repeatedly raised concerns about unsafe encounters at sea, while China has countered that its vessels are operating lawfully and professionally. Both sides reference international norms. Both insist restraint, yet the frequency of close approaches continues to rise. Part of the reason lies in geography. Unlike the open Pacific, the East China Sea offers little room to disengage without appearing to withdraw. Turning away can be read as weakness. Holding course can invite disaster. That tension rewards the side willing to press closer to the edge. What makes the situation more fragile is the absence of clear red lines. Naval codes of conduct exist, but they rely on mutual adherence and good faith. When signaling becomes the primary weapon, ambiguity becomes an asset. This is why a moment of too close matters far beyond a single patrol. It is not just about seamanship. It is about testing how much pressure the system can absorb before control slips away. And once that test begins, every encounter becomes a little more dangerous than the last. Long before the two ships come within visual range, the encounter has already begun on screens and reports, and inside the minds of their crews. On the Japanese destroyer, preparation follows doctrine. Radar operators track surface contacts, continuously filtering civilian traffic from military hulls by speed, heading, and behavior. Intelligence summaries from previous patrols are reviewed. Which ships tend to shadow, how aggressively they close distance, how long they maintain contact before breaking away. Patterns matter here. Predictability reduces surprise, but it can also invite testing. In the Combat Information Center, the mood is professional, restrained. The officers know that any deviation will be scrutinized later, frame by frame. Orders are precise, language is clipped. No one raises their voice because emotion is a liability when every maneuver carries political weight. As the distance between the ships narrows, both crews are fully aware of the stakes. International norms dictate safe separation, but they also leave room for interpretation. What one side considers professional seamanship, the other may see as intimidation. Human judgment becomes the critical variable. A junior officer hesitates before reporting the latest range update, knowing it will force a decision. A commanding officer weighs options that all carry risk, adjust speed, alter course, or hold steady and signal resolve. Each choice sends a message whether intended or not. Intelligence in this context is not about knowing the enemy's capabilities. It is about understanding thresholds, how much pressure the other side will tolerate before acting. And once those thresholds are approached, information gives way to instinct. This is the point where preparation ends. The next maneuver will not be guided by routine, but by a calculation made in seconds under watchful eyes on both sides of the horizon. The final approach is subtle, almost deceptive. The Chinese ship does not charge forward. Instead, it adjusts speed by a few knots, alters its heading by degrees rather than angles. On radar, the track line tightens. Visually, the hull grows larger against the gray water, rising and falling with the same swell pattern as the Japanese destroyer. They are now moving as if connected by an invisible line. Inside the Japanese Combat Information Center, the range callouts change tone. What had been measured in cables becomes something more immediate. The officer of the deck looks up from the chart. On the bridge, the sea between the two ships no longer feels empty. The margin for error is shrinking, and everyone knows it. This is the moment where shadowing becomes something else. A minor change in wind direction causes the destroyer to yaw slightly. The Chinese ship mirrors the movement. The distance closes again. From the bridge windows, details are now visible: deck, equipment, crew movement, the angle of the bow. No alarm sound. No collision warning system can replace judgment here. The commanding officer considers the options, each one worse than the last. Maintaining course signals resolve, but leaves no buffer if the other ship makes an unexpected move. Altering course reduces risk, but sends a message that will be noted and remembered. Slowing down increases separation, but hands positional control to the shadowing vessel. Seconds pass. The sea does not wait. A small wave lifts the destroyer's bow just as the Chinese ship's stern dips. For an instant, the geometry feels wrong, misaligned, unstable. A near miss is no longer theoretical. It is a physical possibility hanging between steel hulls and human decisions. The order comes quietly, a controlled adjustment, minimal rudder, just enough to create space without advertising retreat. The Chinese ship holds position for a moment longer as if measuring the response. The pressure lifts slowly, deliberately. The message has been delivered. On paper, nothing happened. No shots fired, no damage reported, no emergency procedures activated. Yet everyone involved understands that the encounter crossed an invisible line. The situation had moved from signaling into risk, real, uncontrollable risk. As distance increases, conversations resume at normal volume. Range readouts stabilize. The destroyer returns to its assigned track, but the patrol no longer feels routine. What just occurred will be logged, analyzed, and debated far beyond the bridge. For one side, the encounter demonstrated control through proximity. For the other, it revealed how quickly stability can erode without a single weapon being used. The sea closes over the moment as if nothing occurred, but the lesson remains. When ships operate this close, deterrence no longer depends on firepower. It depends on nerve timing and the willingness to accept risk. And the closer those margins become, the harder it is to believe that the next encounter will end the same way. The response begins the moment the distance opens again. On the Japanese destroyer, procedures take over. Course and speed are stabilized. Logs are updated in real time, recording bearings, ranges, and maneuvers down to the minute. Radar data is preserved. Bridge audio is archived. This is not just routine paperwork, it is evidence captured while memories are still sharp and timelines uncontested. Elsewhere, the encounter begins to move up the chain of command. Analysts compare this incident to previous close approaches. Was the distance shorter? Was the maneuver more assertive? Did it cross an informal threshold that it held before? These questions matter because they shape what happens next, not just for this ship, but for future patrols across the region. Publicly, nothing is said at first. Statements, if they come at all, will be measured. Language will be chosen carefully, unsafe, regrettable, inconsistent with international norms. Each word is weighed to express concern without inflaming tensions. Diplomacy, like seamanship, relies on precision. From a defensive standpoint, the outcome is ambiguous. The destroyer remains operational, no damage has occurred. Yet the patrol has been tested, its margins exposed. The encounter demonstrates how easily presence can be challenged without triggering an overt response, and how quickly risk shifts back onto the ship determined to hold its ground. This is the true aftermath of a too close moment. Not wreckage or headlines, but a quiet recalibration of behavior. Routes are reconsidered, guidance is refined, crews are briefed with fresh examples rather than abstract warnings. Nothing exploded, but something changed. What makes naval encounters uniquely dangerous is not speed, but inertia. A modern destroyer displaces thousands of tons. At cruising speed, it cannot stop quickly and it cannot turn sharply without committing to a maneuver that takes time to unfold. This means that distance at sea is not a comfort measure, it is a safety margin. When that margin collapses, risk escalates exponentially. Near-miss situations often develop through small compounding variables, slight differences in swell timing, minor yaw induced by wind, a momentary delay in rudder response. None of these factors are dramatic on their own. Together, they can push two hulls into a geometry where recovery options narrow to seconds. Unlike air encounters, there is no vertical escape. Ships share the same plane and evasive maneuvers consume distance rather than creating it. A hard turn at sea requires advanced planning. Executed too late, it can actually increase collision risk by exposing the ship's beam. This is why commanding officers are trained to favor early measured adjustments, but in a shadowing scenario, those adjustments are precisely what the other side seeks to provoke. Codes like cues exist to mitigate these dangers. They encourage clear signaling, predictable maneuvers, and avoidance of close approaches. But they are voluntary frameworks, not enforcement mechanisms. Their effectiveness relies on mutual restraint, and restraint becomes negotiable when proximity itself is used as leverage. The success of such a maneuver is measured not in meters gained, but in behavior changed. If the opposing ship alters course, slows down, or widens separation on subsequent patrols, the objective has been achieved without firing a shot, without crossing a legal red line. This is why near-miss encounters are so strategically valuable and so dangerous. They reward control under pressure but punish miscalculation with consequences no one can contain. The impact of a too-close encounter does not end when the ships separate. It lingers in planning rooms, briefing decks, and the calculations that shape every patrol that follows. In the short term, behavior shifts. Routes are adjusted slightly, separation standards are reviewed. Commanders brief crews with real examples instead of theoretical scenarios. Presence missions continue, but with an added layer of caution. Not because doctrine has changed, but because experience has rewritten the margins of acceptable risk. Across the region, other navies take note. Close approach tactics are not exclusive to any single pair of countries. Once proven effective, they spread. What begins as a localized pattern becomes a regional norm, quietly lowering safety thresholds in some of the world's most congested waters. The more often ships operate at the edge of control, the greater the chance that one encounter will slip beyond intention. This is where escalation risk grows. Unlike deliberate attacks, near-miss incidents leave no clear villain and no clean trigger for de-escalation. Each side believes it acted professionally. Each side believes the other pushed too far. In that ambiguity, political pressure mounts. Domestic audiences demand firmness. Leaders inherit incidents they did not initiate. The East China Sea has avoided such a disaster so far, not because the risk is low, but because discipline has held just enough, just often enough. The question is whether that discipline can endure indefinitely as margins continue to shrink. Because when deterrence depends on everyone making the right decision every time, the weakest link is not strategy, it is probability. What unfolded in the East China Sea was not a clash of fleets, but a clash of thresholds. Chinese naval ships shadowing Japanese destroyers did not seek destruction. They sought influence applied through distance, timing, and pressure. The moment things became too close was not a mistake. It was the point, a calculated test of discipline, nerve, and political restraint. For Japan, the incident reinforces a hard truth. Presence alone does not guarantee control. Holding the line at sea now requires more than steel hulls and trained crews. It demands constant judgment under conditions where safety and signaling pull in opposite directions. Every maneuver must preserve life and stability without yielding ground that cannot be reclaimed. For China, the encounter demonstrates the effectiveness and danger of gray zone tactics. Shadowing can compel adjustment without provoking immediate retaliation, but it also pushes risk outward into a space where accidents carry consequences no narrative can contain. For the region, the lesson is sobering. Modern conflict does not always announce itself with gunfire. It can unfold through proximity ambiguity and a steady erosion of margins. Near-miss encounters become a form of pressure normalized through repetition. Each one succeeds only if the next goes just as planned. History suggests that such balance is fragile. The most dangerous moment is not when a weapon is fired, but when no one intends to fire and control is still lost. At sea, steel does not forgive hesitation. Politics does not undo collisions. As long as warships operate this close, deterrence will depend not on firepower, but on restraint, exercised perfectly every time. That is a narrow foundation for stability. And in waters as crowded as these, it may not hold forever. Bye for now.